Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Zone Star State podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Ishmael Johnson. Ish, how you doing today? I asked you off air if you got your Cam Ward jersey, but you said no.
Not yet. I hadn't got a jersey. I haven't bought a football jersey in like 10 plus years. For as much as I love the sport, football's got to be the worst jersey to
100%.
to wear. Like soccer's number one, the best.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Let's start with that. What do you think of the best? Soccer's easily the best because it's a shirt.
Baseball? Baseball might
Baseball
be
is pretty good. You
second.
can style a baseball. You can style
Yeah,
a baseball jersey.
baseball might be second. Basketball is good, but you
It's
gotta
tough.
if it's an actual jersey, you either gotta
Yeah.
decide, am I wearing a hoodie under it? Am I wearing a shirt under
Right.
it? Sleeve like how you can't just wear you can just wear it, but like you have to think about the whole fit
Yeah,
there. I
I'll
think
say
baseball
this,
you can just kind of
basketball
throw
jerseys
on.
look if you just wear the jersey, basketball jerseys look a little sloppy sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you only see it at, like, music festivals because like, it
Yes.
looks a little like it's out in the sun.
I have a trashy one.
Hockey's underrated.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say is hockey, unlike football, is
Yeah.
meant to be big. And
Yes.
so it's kinda like the style that
Right.
football's kind of in between, you don't really know what you're doing with that. So I think that's a
Right.
good list of those 4.
Yeah.
Um, I don't there's not a sport we're missing, are we? No. No,
No, I
there's
don't
not.
think at least not casual wear. Soccer's always gonna be number 1 because 'cause they're just shirts and they're meant to be slim fitting and all that
Exactly.
stuff, so, yeah. I don't know.
When I
If
was
long story short, if there's a way for anybody, football, basketball, to make things look like soccer jerseys, you'd sell millions.
Oh, 100%. When I was younger, I don't know why. Well, I do know why, because I've always been kind of a sports history type of guy.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I was really, really into it. And so football history was the first thing I got into. Why did I get a Walter Payton jersey when I was like 8? And it was way too big. My parents didn't care about finding a children. Well, I don't think there was a children's Walter Payton jersey
Yep.
out there, but I got a big Walter Payton jersey. That was way too big, and then a big Jim Brown jersey. And so you're walking into 10-year-old me's closet, and there's a Walter Payton, Jim Brown jerseys. You're like, these are players from the 60s and
Yeah.
70s. What are we doing here?
I still
But
have my Walter Payton throwback. I have a Payton throwback, I have a Mean Green throwback, shout out North Texas.
yeah,
Uh, and I have a do you remember Steven Davis, the running back for the Panthers and
yes,
Washington? Yeah.
yes, that is a
I randomly
what?
have a Steven Davis jersey.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah, shout out the jerseys.
yeah.
I've been saying I need to get my Wembanyama jersey. I have a fake Damian Lillard jersey. I have a fake Kobe jersey.
Okay.
I wore the fake Damian Lillard jersey to the beach the other day. Like you said,
Nice.
that's like something you could just wear out
Yeah,
in
that's
casual
like
stuff.
vacation attire. Basketball is like
Exactly.
vacation attire.
$20 DH Gate Damian Lillard jersey.
My
Perfect.
friend One of my friends has a game he plays where he tries to find the most obscure basketball jersey and then wear
Mm,
that to a festival. And so, like,
that's a good one.
he'll have, like, I think one of them he'll have, like, a Doug Christie jersey,
Yeah.
he'll have, like, anything like that, and that's, like, his thing is anytime he goes to a festival, he
I
tries to
have,
put on an obscure
the
jersey.
real ones I have a real Russell Westbrook jersey I bought, like, in
Okay.
2017, I think
Yeah.
after the MVP season. I love that. I need to get a real Steph Curry jersey before he
Nice. Yeah.
retires for sure, but yeah, and then a Wembanyama jersey, so I need to add to the collection
Yep.
there. It's just hard because, like we said, it's not like a lot of specific times you're wearing a jersey out, so
Right, a lot
it's
of
kinda
it's
like
gonna be just hanging up.
exactly, exactly. Alright, um, off-season podcast, transfer
Yep.
portal. We've talked about all of the major additions pretty much to this point. Nothing else really happened over the past week since we last talked to y'all. I will say we'll do winners and losers here. We'll talk about the coaching changes, those rosters as well, because I can consider those like a completely different entity. But
Mhm.
you wanted to start with an interesting conversation with the amount of turnover in some
Yeah.
of these college basketball rosters, and specifically with Baylor, who's not returning a single player from last year's team. And we talked about it briefly, but we didn't really dive into it. And there is the picture going around of all the X's through all of the
The
players.
roster, yeah.
And I'll see if I can find it, but you can kind of lead us into it. What are your thoughts on it, or where you want to start?
Yeah, like, we're seeing this picture go around. It's been going around everywhere, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. Um, and I understand the frustration. Basically, the virality of it. I don't know verbatim, but it's basically saying, look what's happening to our sport. Baylor, is having to replace all of its players. This is what the transfer portal and NIL is doing, and it's ruining the sport, blah, 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 blah. And I get like the frustration of that. The problem is when one, this is not a usual thing, right? Like this isn't something that's happening to every single team out there. It's one
Mhm.
team. Also, let's not act like all these guys left like on probably on their own accord. uh it would
Yeah.
not shock me if Scott Drew and the team was like, "Hey, some of you guys, we need to upgrade," right?
Yes.
Um, Also, not including VJ Edgecombe is going pro, right? Like, so it's not all transfer portal. The only, and I legitimately mean this, the only one that you could chalk up as a loss is Rob Wright. Rob Wright got an offer from somewhere else that was more than what Baylor was willing to pay, probably, and went to BYU, right? That is the one where you could say somebody probably likely tampered with him during the season and
Yes.
said, "Hey, we got a bag waiting for you in Provo. Come get it." You look at where everybody else went. Langston Love,
I found the picture.
Georgetown. Right, yeah, there's the viral image, right? It's like, "Oh, this is a travesty of the sport." Langston Love, Xavier. There was it Georgetown, sorry, Georgetown.
Yeah.
Jason Asamoah, Boston College. Jalen Celestine, Cincinnati. These guys aren't going to Alabama. These guys aren't going to Kentucky. You look at one, Rob Wright, and you can say BYU is not as good of a program, but he got an offer that was
Yes.
bigger than Baylor. All these guys didn't leave on their own accord, is what I'm saying. It was either VJ Edgecombe going pro, or hey, guess what? Scott Drew and the coaching staff looking around and saying, you know what happened last year? We weren't very good.
Yep.
And we weren't as good as we thought we needed to be. Because you know what Baylor's done since then? They've upgraded almost every single one of these guys. This isn't a situation of they all left. What are we doing? Oh my God. Like, look at the G5 if you want, the mid majors, if you want to do that, right? If you want to do
Yes.
UTSA, North Texas having to do that with Daniel Robinson, obviously a new head coach, but like, that's where you see that happening. This isn't with Baylor, where we look at the transfers and we'll talk about some of their incomings. We think they've gotten pretty damn good upgrade wise as far as that's concerned. So it's, I understand where if you're a casual and you come into the year and you're like, "Oh, Baylor, I like Baylor," and then all of a sudden the next year you have a whole new team that you have to learn
Yeah.
and all that. I understand how that gets frustrating. That's not the player's fault. That's the fault of the NCAA, right? Because there's no guardrails on this. And also, let's not take some blame off of Baylor. This is probably a little bit of them, because when the one thing we don't see, and we saw this in football with Malik Murphy, right? We see him entering the transfer portal. Everybody's like, "Oh, what's Malik Murphy doing?" Comes out later that dude kind of pushed him out the door because they were bringing in a new quarterback. And so, like,
Mm.
it's a push and pull type of
Yeah.
situation. And I feel like in these viral images that people just see one thing is like, "Oh, all the players are leaving. Baylor's screwed." So,
My only question to Baylor fans was like, did you enjoy this past year?
like, do
I
you want all those dudes back?
VJ is gone and Omir are gone
Yeah,
already. Like you said, Rob Wright is the one that hurts. Like Rob Wright's
sure.
like, damn,
Yeah,
we're gonna get him for 1 million or 1.2 or something. He ends up getting 3 million from BYU. Like, yes,
right.
that again, all of this and across the country, everybody wants some sort of regulation. So everybody wants some sort of structure into what is going on here. So I understand that aspect of it. Everybody else is expendable. I'm sorry. Langston Love has been someone we've talked about on this podcast for 3 years at this point, dude. I am done relying on Langston Love. I'm done relying
Mhm.
on Josh Ojenwuna. Like, go get some actual players. And I think from the top to bottom, there needed to be a reset. And I said this when it initially happened, or when most of the players left. It was like, good for Scott Drew. I
Yeah.
legitimately said that. Good for Scott Drew to realize I'm comfortable enough as a coach to say, we need to reset this thing. We have
Mhm.
not been where we wanted to be since the championship for injuries or one reason or the other. We went young one year, we went old, like whatever it is. We are going to reset and we're going to build a brand new team from scratch. And however we need to do that, whether it's paying a bunch of players, whether it's getting Rob Wright back and going from there, like however they wanted to do it, I just think it was needed. And I don't think it's not like this is a Baylor team that was a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament and on the cusp of like a Sweet 16 or something. Like
Right.
they were a 9 seed, and they sure
Jalen
you won your
Celestine
first
shot
game.
38% from the floor. Look, to your point, Langston Love, Jordan Celestine, 38%, 37% from the floor. Are you crying that those guys leave?
They're
Like,
not high level contributors on a team that if you're a Baylor program and you're a Baylor fan, your expectations are to be a top 10 to 15 team every single year. Every
mhm,
single year. Those guys are not high level contributors on a top 10 to 15 team every year. I'm sorry,
right.
they're not. Josh Ojuna was not. Like you couldn't defend last year. You couldn't defend the
Nope,
last 2 years. All
nope.
right, now they went and got, just off the top of my head, Dan Skillings can defend from Cincinnati. They went
I
and
was
got
about to
High
say
Point.
if you're mad about a trade of Skillings for Celestine, are you kidding me? Or
Yeah,
whoever went to Cincinnati, like you'll
like
take that
High
trade.
Point, the defensive player of the year from High Point conference. Like I'm just off the top of my head, I don't even have it in front
Yeah.
of me, but like you're going to get players that maybe it's an even trade off in the hindsight, but I think you just need a reset of some sort, and I think that's the big thing here is they've tried to make it work with this core of not even like core of like multiple players, but like this core of like older players like a
Mhm.
Love, Ojinwuna, Celestine, or whatever. No, dude, just go reset this thing. There's no need to continue to do it. Like in the NBA, it would be trading off your older players and resetting and tanking. Like the good thing in college basketball, there's no tanking. Like you're
Right.
just getting right back to it, and Baylor will be once again a very good team next year. And I think they're going to have a much higher upside as a result. And you're also adding 5-star freshman, Yesufu,
Yeah.
Tonde Yesufu, who's going to come in. So you're going to have talent. Everybody just take a deep breath and realize that, like you said, it's not all because of the players. A lot of it is because of the coaches. And yeah, you lost one player, Rob Wright, to a $3 million bag deal. It happens to every
It
team in the
happens.
country, pretty much.
Florida,
So
Florida just the national champs just lost its player. You know.
Chad Baker Mazzara from Auburn just went to USC, and he said it was because they couldn't reach a deal with Auburn. Like it happens. It
Yeah.
happens. But I do think it is
Um,
interesting.
I think, and we'll talk more about Baylor in the offseason and all that. But I think what Baylor and Scott Drew kind of got caught in, and I'm glad you brought up them resetting, is after they won the national title, they realized that there were still some pieces here and there that were worth, Jonathan Chamachachua, like LJ Cryer, right? There were still some pieces that were there that could elevate them with the right moves around them. So they made these one-off moves while keeping the structure, right? So
Yeah.
like a Kinjo,
Ray J. Dennis.
Ray J. Dennis, right, last year. But what happened was because they were holding on to a lot of those guys, it wasn't giving the hard reset that they probably needed.
Yeah.
Right. And last year they tried it with Jeremy Roach. It was like, oh, let's bring in Roach and we'll just see what we
Yeah.
can do. And finally it was like, you know what? It's all done. All of it's done. Let's just start from scratch. Let's embrace the portal era. Everybody else is doing it. Florida just won a national title within 2 years of Todd Golden. Like, let's just figure this thing out from scratch. And yeah, you're gonna see these type of things, and it's not gonna be it's not a bad thing. Baylor Scott Drew's not crying. Scott Drew ain't crying that he lost his whole team because he got probably a better one. So
And I will say, just have some faith in Scott Drew.
yeah,
If Scott
seriously.
Drew is the coach that you and we all think he is,
Yep,
have some faith in Scott Drew. It is going to
100%.
be fine. And if again, if you're saying it's a problem for the bigger college basketball picture, yeah, I agree. I
Hmm.
agree. It is a problem in the big picture, but it's not getting solved right now, and it's not getting solved probably in the next 2-3 years. But we'll cross that bridge whenever it comes to it. At this
Yep,
moment, I think they did the right thing. I
yep.
think they did the right thing, and they have a really good class, which we talked about last podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have it written down to talk about them on this podcast, but they have a very good class coming in that we'll talk about in the coming weeks.
Yep.
Okay, before we get to winners and losers, I want to talk about some of the rosters of the coaching changes, the
Hmm.
teams that had coaching changes, because I couldn't in I think most of them are like quote unquote like losers, but
Hmm.
I think it's kind of just a product of having a coaching change, right? Like you're going to
Right.
lose a lot of players when that happens and so on. So I think like North Texas, is an obvious, like, you lost everybody.
Right.
You've just lost everybody. And the players that are coming in are a lot of them are from Cleveland State. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've watched a bunch of Cleveland State film or anything like that. I've looked
Right.
up their stats. I've looked up, like, where they've been and so on. So I know of them,
Mhm.
but it's going to be hard to take that step up, like with a full team of Cleveland State that was good last year, but wasn't like a world beater by any means. So, like,
Right.
again, I'm not calling them a loser. It is just the situation where Texas is in is that you might have to take a lump for a year where it's a real reset and a real turnaround of a roster where, look, we just got to get players in here. We'll
Mhm.
get some Cleveland State guys in, and then we'll go from there. So I'm not sure. And North Texas, as we know, like, is not in here pumping in NIL at a high rate.
Right.
That they're not going to be competing with Memphis and so on, like those teams. So it's going to take some time to rebuild. You can't rebuild the same way that like high major programs do. So
Right.
I did want to just give that preface out there before we continue. I will say we can talk a little bit more in depth about Texas men's basketball's
Mhm.
class because they did just add Simeon Wilcher from St. John's, who is I think that's a substantial transfer for them to add on the perimeter. So with Texas class now, I think Sean Miller has the foundation to be competitive in
Mhm.
the SEC. Do I know if it's a tournament team? I don't know. But I do think they with Wilcher, with Dalen Swain, I think those two are good enough to give them enough scoring at like the 3 and 4 at the 2 and 3 spots to where, okay, you had them and you have Tremont Mark back at the
Mhm.
2 presumably. That's a good core of like 2 through 4 or two threes, whatever, on the wing. That's
Right.
going to
Right.
give them a scoring punch. So I like that for Texas. No one else really stands out in their class. Like we've talked about it. The Matas kid from FAU was a really high rated player in the transfer
Mm.
portal on three.
Lucina Traore from
Yeah,
Xavier.
Lassine Traore from
They did get
Xavier.
bigger. I will say this. I think they're gonna
Yeah,
defend a lot better because they got a lot bigger. Kendall Weaver's also coming back, so that might be one of their better perimeter defenders. Um, like you mentioned, Traore and the Matas kid from FAU, that's gonna give them a lot of size, whether they play together or they alternate, whatever. Um, that's gonna make them a better defensive team. I do think in the in the vacuum of like you mentioned with North Texas, like if you have a new coach, you lose your whole team and you have to get a new team, basically. I do think Texas would count as a portal winner to me because I think that they're building a competitive team that is going to have an identity, right? They're going to defend really, really well. I think they're going to score enough to be competitive in the SEC. You look at just basically just look at their I think and I think they also retained you mentioned Tremont Mark as well, like, they retained enough, right? Like, they retained enough to be to where this isn't a complete 100% reset. I believe there's also he didn't play much last year, but there's some rumors that, Malik Presley's coming back, so, like, just guys that have been around the team, like, coming back, that's a big thing, and I think the additions that Sean Miller's made with selective, guys from Xavier, but then also just around the country as well, I'm optimistic with what they're building in terms of just normal you either see A or B when a new coach comes in. Either they go swinging and they bring in all the all-stars and all of a sudden boom, X what like Dusty May last year, right?
yeah,
Um or they do this where they build enough to give a foundation and then they build forward and then go from there.
yeah. I did like the point you made about them getting bigger. They feel legitimately like big with
Yeah.
Matas and Traore, and then even Swain and Camden Hade from
Yeah, from Purdue, yeah.
Hade,
Oh, sorry.
from
Yeah,
Purdue.
yeah.
Yeah, from Purdue, both
Yeah.
6'7" as well. So yeah, them. I saw John Clark, their only freshman signee.
Mhm.
I saw him in person a year ago, and I was impressed with him. He's a top 60 player in the class. I think at 6'9", he's real skill as like a 4-man who can face up and do a lot of things. So I like that addition as well. But yeah, so I think it's fair to put them in the winners category. Like if we're pushing them to a side.
Yeah.
Um, because I do think, like you said, they do set a foundation here, and I think they should be like solid defensively with this team. And then Mark and Wiltshire will do a lot of the scoring at the guard spots.
Right.
Um, Texas A&M, I think, is in not as good of a position. We talked last podcast about Mackenzie Mbako
Yeah.
from Indiana being their big transfer addition. They did add Duke Miles, who was combo guard from Oklahoma. That's a good get for them as well, and they're going to continue to add players here. But it doesn't stand out. Do you know off the top of your head like their returners? Because I don't.
I
I
do
haven't
not. I
seen any.
mean, from what I remember, this was always going to be a hard reset kind of a
Yeah,
year. But yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. Let me
Taylor's.
see.
I mean,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna read off name. I know we know Taylor's gone, Phelps gone, Payne
Yeah,
gone, Coleman gone, Wiltshire's gone, Garcia's gone, I
I think
think.
Solomon Washington transferred.
So it's a pretty. I
It's a
assume,
hard reset. Yeah,
yeah, it's a hard reset here. And so,
Pharrell Payne's gone.
like, are they gonna have the talent of last year's team? No.
Yeah,
But Miles and Mbako are a good, like, similar to Texas, like a good starting point here.
yeah.
And
I don't. And
then
if I'm being honest, I don't know with the brand of ball that we know McMillan wants to play. I don't know if he would have been able to retain a lot of the guys because like
yeah,
that's such a 180 from what
yeah,
Buzz Williams was doing.
yeah.
Um, he's going to be bringing tempo and a lot of fast, like, so I don't think that I with that context, I don't know if he could have probably brought like Pharrell Payne back.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting. They have 2 signees from the high school class, but, this is definitely a group that we're gonna have to see how it all, like, I need to see the full roster, and I need to
Yeah.
see exactly how it plays out. But it's the hard part for Texas and A&M is they're in the SEC, and
Hmm.
it's not forgiving when you're having to reset a year. Even if you're still a good team, we saw Oklahoma last year be a top 50 team, and they, won 5 games in conference, something like that. So it's not forgiving, and that's the hard part about these coaching changes is you got to be able to pump in some money to go get a team quickly, because if not, you're going to find yourself at the bottom of the SEC.
Yeah.
Um, the last one I wanted to touch on real quick was SMU women's basketball, with Barnes coming in. We talked about it briefly last podcast. Kyla Deck from North Texas transferred over there, and I think that
Mm,
is awesome get for her. And then
yeah.
Ty Skinner from Arizona State, who averaged 17 a game at Arizona State, also went over this. So I think I mean, if those are 2 starters in your backcourt, I
Yeah.
feel really good about SMU immediately being more competitive than when they were last year with those 2.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, I think that's all I had in terms of the coaching changes. You want to jump to an ad read, and then we can get to the portal winners and losers?
Let's do it. So we got a new sponsor, Bology. Appreciate the people at Bology for showing some love in us. That was kind of a unexpected news bit for us to in our brief hiatus that we got a new sponsor. So let me tell you a little bit about our friends at Bology. Bology is built for coaches like you. It gives real data on player development, saves you time, and ensures your players are training the right way. With verified skill assessments, AI driven training, and direct recruiting connections, it levels the playing field for every athlete, no matter where they're from. If you're serious about player development and accountability, why not try Bology? Join thousands of teams, coaches, and organizations already using Bology to elevate their game. Download the Bology app today. Bruni, you are a coach yourself.
I was
No,
about to
Bology
say,
is something you're always looking for information assessments and any way you can get your team right. Sounds like Bology could be right up your alley too.
I will have a full review next podcast of how we
There we
use it.
go.
Um, so yes, we will. We don't have a tournament this weekend. We have 2 weeks off. Thankfully, we've been everywhere, so we'll be
Nice.
back at it, and I will have the full review for you for Bology. Shout out to Bology.
Beautiful.
All right, portal winners and losers here. Okay, again, we're focused on the teams that didn't have coaching changes here.
Mhm.
We'll start on the men's side, and I think there's 2 very clear winners here.
Yeah.
and I think that is Texas Tech and SMU.
Yeah.
And I will preface this by saying it's hard for smaller schools to be winners in this
Sure,
because it
sure.
is such a it is so money driven and it is so, kind of the elitism aspect of it is very prominent here. Like you have to have money, you have to have a stature to get some of these top guys, at least the guys that we know,
Right.
like last year, North Texas team, I probably would have considered them somewhat of a winner, but like we didn't know Atten Wright was like this good. We didn't know
Sure, sure, yeah.
Brennan Lorient, who's like coming off the bench at his last school at times. So a lot of the smaller schools, I don't want to discount them, but we start big because like these are the names we know and these are the names that we can kind of tangibly hold in our hand. Texas Tech, we talked about last podcast. I think not only getting JT Toppin back, but obviously adding the shooting that they were able to do to
Mhm.
add is significant. I think this has made them one of the best teams in the country immediately, I would say. I'm trying to pull up a tracker of the entire thing so I don't miss anybody here. But I mean, we didn't even talk about Josiah Mosley from Villanova coming over.
Yeah, that was a late pick, from Texas. Mr. Texas basketball senior year, went to Villanova. And what did we say on the last episode? We said, "Hey, if they just find a stretch big to play next to JT Toppin,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden they go get Josiah Mosley, who didn't play that much for Villanova, but he is a stretch big, right? As a
Yeah.
former four-star recruit, that was his game. He was kind of a if I had to relate, like he reminded me a lot of Paul Millsap, that kind
Hmm.
of game where it's like he's a big who can kind of take people off the dribble, kind of shoot the spot up three. He's about 6'6", so like he's about that Paul Millsap range. Um, that was underrated. That was an underrated pickup. You're gonna look at his stats and say, okay, he didn't do much at Villanova, but again, Villanova kind of cleaned house, and so like we'll see how much was really going on well there. That was their last pick, or excuse me, then it was Luke. I can't pronounce his name, but they got another forward from VCU after Josiah Mosley, so they made the Darian Williams.
Boye.
Yeah,
Sorry. Tried saying
no,
it
it's
right.
okay. They made the Darian Williams transition pretty nicely. So they have probably the starter in the VCU guy, and then the guy that developed in Josiah Mosley. And on paper, man, last year we said it. On paper, this Tech team looks awesome. And again, on paper, this Tech team looks awesome this year.
Yeah, definitely a winner. We talked last podcast about Lawan Watts from Washington State, Donovan Atwell from UNC Greensboro. So those guys immediately come in as high level players for them and
Yep.
replacing Chance McMillan and Darian Williams, and they just have enough talent now to where you're like, all right, because they feel ahead of schedule. And not to make
They're
this a
yeah,
long
yeah,
Texas Tech
yeah.
rant, but like they made the Elite Eight in year 2 under Grant McCasland. Like it feels like they are ahead of schedule right now, and now you are putting together the pieces to be a legitimate Final Four team next year. So I'm excited. There, Texas Tech clearly a winner here. Another winner, the other winner, SMU here.
Mm,
We talked about Jaron Pierre, the addition of him from Jacksonville State. Then they went and had Corey Washington, a 6'6"
mhm.
wing from Wichita State who was all AAC last season and probably the best player on Wichita State's team. So now not only are you adding someone there, you're also taking away from a competitor in Wichita State. That gives them 2 4-star transfers, actually 3. I'm sorry, because Sam Walters from Michigan also
Yes.
transfers in. That's significant as well because having watched Michigan, like he wasn't like a starter, but he was a rotation guy for them. So you have 3 4-star transfers immediately. And I think I read they got Boopy Miller back as
Luke
well.
Miller is back. Yeah, he was a junior last year. I think Matt Cross is out of eligibility, I believe.
So that sounds right.
But still, regardless, Booby Miller's a great player to base this all around next year. Um, Yohan Traore, I believe, is still there as well. I think question mark. So like they bring back enough and SMU. Actually, sorry, Yohan Traore got in the portal. But regardless, I think this is why, and we're seeing on both the men's and women's side, SMU look to make a move, right? Like we're seeing Adia Barnes bringing in top talent on the women, and this is what Andy Enfield does. He brings top talent in on the men's side. And then we can't underestimate the high school recruiting. He's doing they're in for a lot of 4 and 5-star players, and they may get a couple of them in this 2026 cycle. They've already brought in a pretty
Well,
good class for 2025.
I think it's an elite class in 2025.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
one of the better freshman classes, not only in
Yeah.
the
Oh,
ACC, I'd say in
look,
the
I'm looking at it right
country.
now. Number 21 overall in 247.
I mean, Jaden Toombs, from Dynamic Prep
I
in
forgot they got
Dallas,
Jermaine
top
O'Neal Jr. too.
yeah, Jermaine O'Neal Jr., Dynamic Prep, also in Dallas, both top 1 I mean, Toombs top 40, Jermaine O'Neal
Yeah.
top 90, BJ Davis Ray, I saw him in person last summer, I was impressed with him, top 130 player.
Mhm.
Nigel Walls from Houston, top 70 player. I
Yeah.
mean, we're looking at legitimately at least 3 4-star guys, and then BJ Davis Ray, who's just on the outside of that.
Mhm.
That's a really, really good group, and they're gonna play.
Yeah.
For Enfield. Enfield does not have problem playing freshmen. Obviously, he's gotten transfers before, but he has no problem playing Toombs and Walls and O'Neal. Like, these are legitimate players that have the size to hold up as well. Toombs 6'9", Walls 6'10", O'Neal 6'5", and Davis Ray 6'5". So that freshman class is going to play quite a bit. I know this is a portal podcast, but like when talking about SMU,
In
3
total,
four
yeah.
4-star guys and 4 high level freshmen.
Yeah. No, 100%. I believe they're also in for Christian what's his name? Christian Collins, who's the number 1 forward in 2026, power forward in 2026, 5-star out of Florida. There's a couple guys in the North Texas region, Dakari Spear at point guard, Cameron
Mhm.
Lomax out of Frisco. So like they're gonna I don't know if they're gonna do this exactly again, but they're the fact that Andy Enfield has them in these conversations and relating it back to the portal, the fact that they're a big player in the portal shows why they made this kind of move in the first place.
Yeah. All right. The losers here. I'll read them off, and you tell me which one you want to focus on here.
Okay.
UTSA, TCU, UTEP, Sam Houston State, and then I have one more that we'll include it later on. But of
Let's
those
go.
4,
Yeah. Let's go UTSA first. I think what I underestimated, and I guess I underestimated how much talent this team actually had this year.
I,
And
go ahead.
yeah, and like they again, it wasn't an easy job to come in and rebuild in year one. So like I'm not saying anything about Austin Clunch, but like I look at that 12 and 19 record, I'm like, man, they're having a lot of guys leave for power five, power four programs or better mid-major programs. And I don't know. We obviously there was the controversy about the whole NIL thing that did or didn't happen. Things were promised, didn't deliver, whatever. But I think as far as being a loser, is because it looked like Austin Clunch kind of found a lot of good gems that if this were rolling over into year two, this could be a 20-win team on paper. Like as far as like optimism goes. And now they're gonna kind of have to try and do that all again.
Yeah, Smurf Melinder commits to Georgia. Damari Monsanto, who was the player who said he didn't get paid,
Mhm.
also entered the portal. They did add Austin Nunez.
Which is a really good former, I believe, former
Yeah,
Wagner player?
Wagner. Yep,
Yeah, yeah,
Wagner.
really that was a really good get for them.
So, and he didn't do like a ton at Arizona State, but that is a good get. Again, Austin Clonch is going to be able to, like, if we go big picture, he's going to be able to
Yeah.
sell these players in the portal, and you're going to come in, you're going to get shots,
Yep.
like, flat out. And
If you're
Linder
if you're a
did it.
mid-major if you're a mid-major program, that's what you gotta kinda do is like, "Hey, are you a former four-star that didn't live up to the billing? Come here, get stuff on tape, and then maybe" like, that's unfortunately gonna have to be a lot of mid-major selling points is you wanna
Yes.
get paid next year, come here and do some work, and then we'll kind of
Yeah.
that's not a bad place to be if you're UTSA.
Well, because it's, yeah, I mean, that's the reality of every, I mean, dude, I think UAB lost every player too. Like, it's not just
Yeah.
the bad mid-major teams, it's the good mid-major teams too.
Right, right.
And you have to propose a question to the players. It's like, would you, what's going to get you paid more? Coming over here and averaging 17 points a game, or sitting on the bench at Texas A&M?
Sure.
Like, I just, that's where you're gonna have to start to really approach this with that perspective, and that's the hard part here. But yes, UTSA loses a couple players. We'll see what Clonch can do. I have no doubts that Clonch will be able to get guys that can score the basketball, Nunez being one of them. So they're who we start off with. TCU, I had their
Yeah.
class up here earlier. I don't know where it went,
Yeah, so
but
they've lost Frankie
Frankie
Collins, Ernest
Collins,
Uday, Isaiah Manning, and Vashawn Alette.
that Alette was the big one to me
Yeah,
because Alette
yeah,
is a legitimate player, and we knew he was a legit player, and he lived up to the billing. And I was hoping that he would be able to like stick around. Like Baylor fans listening, like that's frustrating.
right.
Like a guy who had as a freshman who's probably not even gonna get like that much more of a bag, but like just
Mhm.
leaves for one reason or the other there. Like he
Yeah,
should go to wherever. Like he should be at a big time program
yeah, it
here.
looks like I
So
think, y'all at On 3 have a mock to Arizona State right now. Um,
that would be frustrating.
yeah, and
That's TCU
I guess for me, Baylor I mean, TCU definitely counts as a loser because this
resetting.
was the hard reset year.
Hmm.
Right? This was the year that instead of going big fish hunting, they go and get all these guys who are kind of tier 2 and then hope that they can stay for 1, 2, 3 years. And then eventually next year they make the move to be contender. Now it's kind of another hard reset year because you mentioned it. Manning, redshirt freshman, Vassan Alette, sophomore. Who was the other? Ernest Uday, junior. Frankie Collins. Frank Collins was a senior, so that was probably his last year to kind of make something. But still, like though I just mentioned two underclassmen that you brought in, and you were hoping that they would roll over into the next year. So that's why I think they count as a loser for me, is because this was the plan. They were the
Yeah.
plan, right? And now they're gone. And they're bringing in Jaden Pierre, who's a really good player from Providence. So again, but he may end up being better on paper and to some extent, or better on the court to some extent. Brock Harding as well from Iowa, who's a decent contributor there, but you're still having to readjust the foundation of what you were doing and building.
We have SMU and UTEP here. I'm sorry, Sam
Sam Houston.
Houston,
Yeah.
Sam SHSU. I was looking at it now, and I will say Sam Houston did add um, Isaiah Manning from TCU, so there's
Yeah,
kind of a bridge
that's a
from
decent pickup
there.
for them. Yeah.
That's a good get for Sam Houston State.
Mhm.
The problem is Lamar Wilkerson just got paid like $3 million to go play at Indiana,
Yeah,
and
that's a massive loss. And the fact that they probably weren't as good as they were hoping to be with him.
yes, that's the and he stayed. He was there for 3 or 4 years, or
Yeah.
3 years, I think it was something like that. That's the hard part, is when you have these guys, you got to kind of win with them, and because if not, then they go get paid 20x what you can pay them at
Mhm. Right, right.
Indiana, and so you lose him. They also lost Khalifa Sacco,
Mhm.
who was a legitimate player for them this past year. Had transferred in from Utah State before that. So those are two players that I'm like, I don't know how you replace them.
Mhm.
And that's the hard part of, like, new players will step up, new players will be there. But you're talking about Sacco, who played 25 minutes a game, 32 starts, shot 66% from the field. I averaged 8 and 7 or whatever it was. And then
Mhm.
Lamar Wilkerson, we all know, averaged 20 points per game and shot the lights out of the building, 44%. Uh, Isaiah Manning's a good start. I'm excited to see if they can add somebody else that can help kind of get them to the next page where they need to be. And then
Yeah.
UTEP lost Ahmad Bynum and Devin Barnes, and that
And David Terrell.
and Terrell.
They
And
also that's actually a really underrated loser. They lost everybody.
yeah,
Um,
and
yeah.
the thing is, like, he had changed his kind of identity last year. Like, they become more offensive
Yeah.
oriented, and now you just reset every year, man. It's so hard
That's a brutal one.
to do it. Yeah. So
Yeah. I have
that
no idea I mean, I'm very curious to see what they do. Um, but yeah, that's a uh, brutal off season for them so far. There was one debate you wanted to have though with the last team on this list.
Yes, there was. Because I didn't want to call them a loser because that
Yeah.
felt wrong because they just made the national championship game. and, and I don't want to be brash
Yeah.
by any means. But Houston, if we're pushing them to a side, they're definitely not on the winning side of the portal. Now, you could argue, do they need to be on the winning side of the portal? They have a great freshman class coming in. They have
Mhm.
returners. They have enough. But you lose Terrence Arsenault. You lose Javier Francis.
Yeah, that one's weird. So like I thought he was out of eligibility.
He might just be like, you know,
Yeah,
interning
but I
to
mean,
be.
if we'll count him as a loss because that is, he's regardless, he's not going to be there.
And then I mean, Milos Uzan doesn't count as a transfer loss, but you
Right,
lost
he's going
him
to the league, but he's that's pretty
to the
big.
NBA. That's a
Yeah,
big loss.
yeah,
So if we just say those three departures, Arsenault, Francis, and Uzan,
yeah,
without even doing anything else here, because Roberts is also gone,
yeah. He's out
um,
of eligibility.
out of eligibility, obviously.
Yeah,
All they've added to this point is Pop Isaacs.
yeah. And they thought they were in play for Shelton Henderson, who ends up going to Miami. Um, and that would have helped things, right? Because then you probably fill that athletic wing
Yes.
slash forward type of guy. I think you have to technically count them as it's weird because I wanna count them as a loser, but I'm also like, that's still probably a top 3 team in the preseason next year,
Yeah.
like but,
Well,
like
sorry, Houston, you're not number 1 in the preseason poll. You're
yeah,
number
yeah, yeah, I guess,
but go ahead.
it's tough because Arsenault goes to NC State, right? So it's not like he went to a bad program. Will Wade, threw some money around and was able to get him in. I also think that there was I wonder how much of that was mutual because I don't think Arsenault probably liked playing power forward, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think if I remember him back in high school, he's a wing and he played wing a little bit of the time. He's a gifted scoring wing. And granted, Kelvin Sampson got him playing pretty good defense. And he had out of necessity, they needed him to play on small ball four a lot. But I think that's a loss because I think that's somebody they really would have counted on this year.
I
Um,
yeah.
you look at that team, and every year it's just kind of like a shuffling of the deck. Like the next guys at the bottom move up, right? You look at Javier Francis, you look at Emmanuel Sharp, you look at Malik Wilson, right? Guys just slot into their spot at the next spot above. Tugler became a defensive all-star this year, and he was next in line to me. I don't know if he would have taken the exact step that Emmanuel Sharp would have taken, but like I think of that caliber, like with the bench guy that comes in and is more involved, six man type of thing. I think that's a loss because now you again, and we made it a meme, but like now you're relying a lot more on Pop Isaacs, man. Like and we'll see what happens there, but like that's a lot of pressure on these incoming freshmen too. And I think some of
Yeah.
them will be really good, but
Yes.
that's a lot of pressure coming in
Yes.
to a team that made a national title last year. And I still think we'll be a top 3, top 5 team in the preseason. But man, you look at some of the teams around that conversation, Duke, you look at I'm trying to think of anybody. I mean, are they better than
Texas
Tech right
Tech.
now? I was
No.
about to say, are they better? Would you take them
No.
over Tech right now?
No. No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not they have to go get they have to go get a couple dudes.
Yeah,
They
they
have to
do.
go get a couple dudes in the portal. And like you said, it's felt the past 4, 5, 6 years, however long, it's felt like that natural progression, the natural shuffling that a lot of teams, a lot of programs want. You made a national championship game.
Yeah.
So that you reached your apex with that group.
Mhm.
Now it's not a tear down, but it is a reset of sorts with this Houston program to say, all right, sure, we bring in Pop Isaacs, but we need to go replace Francis and Roberts. And as much as I like Chris Sinak, he is not Francis and Roberts.
Mhm.
He's not, and JoJo Tugler is, but like that's where you're going to be really young if you're starting Sinak and Tugler in your front court. That doesn't feel Houston to me. And maybe the next year's team doesn't feel like Houston. Maybe it is a bunch of young guys running around, but like it's going to be very, very different if they don't go and get guys. And I think they will go get some guys, but it is getting later in the process here. We're about to be in May. So it's just an interesting conversation I wanted to have.
Do we know when? I'm sorry. Do we know when the deadline for the draft is? Because
May, um, yeah, it's May 9th
okay, so again,
or 11th, something like that.
we could still come back, and Uzan can come back, right? We
Good.
could come back
Yeah.
here, and all of a sudden Uzan's back, and then the conversation changes. It's like, okay, then this team is a lot better, right? Uzan Sharp backcourt is a lot better than Isaac Sharp. You know, so we'll see. NBA just announced 2 hours ago they just put out their 106 early entrants for the draft process, and Uzan's on the list. So we'll have to
Yeah.
see again.
It's
There's a
later. It's later than what I said because the combine
28th,
is
28th. Then there it
yeah,
is. I'm looking at it
yeah,
right now. So May 28th, we'll see. Um, again, right now Uzan's going to go through the process. I haven't seen any. It's very weird because I haven't seen anybody who put out the news that he's declaring that he's keeping his options open. Like
yeah. It
usually they
felt
put that
very
like
yeah.
yeah, usually they put like, oh, he's testing the waters, he's gonna keep his mind open. It's been pretty definitive. I still find that hard to believe that it's definitive for somebody like him who's not a guaranteed first round pick. Um,
Yeah.
so we'll see, but we have about a month to see, and that probably obviously impacts what they do in the portal.
Oh, for sure. And that's the hard part for Houston is you sit there and kind of wait for him
Right.
to figure it
Do they
out.
have the 4 million that PJ Haggerty's looking for to throw at? Are they just sitting on it right now?
I texted you. Sean Miller should have it. Sean Miller, call somebody up. Go get PJ Haggerty, and then we're actually talking about Texas on this podcast.
Oh, yeah, I
I
know,
would
right?
love
Seriously.
it. I would love that so
Well, the problem
much.
is he wants to play point guard, and he's not a point guard. He's pulling an is he gonna pull an LJ Cryer where he says he
LJ
wants to play
Cryer.
point guard, then he only kind of wants to play point guard?
Yeah, then it's like, never mind. I'm good. Regardless, it would be fun, and that's what
I
we're
would
about
love
on
it.
this
I would love it.
podcast is
Lower that asking price, dog. I know you're not getting four
content.
million dollars. You're
The
not getting four
content,
million. I'm sorry.
the content would be elite from PJ Haggerty at Texas. All
Yes.
right. On the women's side, even more so, it is top heavy, and I'm just gonna talk about the top three real quick.
Yep.
Not real quick because TCU. I don't know if you saw this. We talked about Silva, the six
Yeah.
seven player they added. You know they added another 6'7" player.
When? I didn't see this.
I didn't see it either. I missed it. It was a week and a half ago. Kennedy Basham, a six
Okay.
foot seven Arizona State transfer who had 2.6 blocks per game last year in her junior season with 6.5 rebounds and 5.7 points.
Sure.
Uh, they have now 2 6'7" players who they will rotate at the 5. And
Oh.
then they win and also like this is men's or women. This is the absolute biggest winner
Oh
of
yeah.
the transfer portal. TCU women's by a
Yes.
landslide because we've already
Yes.
talked about Olivia Miles. We
Yep.
already talked about Silva. When we ended the last podcast, Suarez committed.
Hmm.
Um, and with that, then they also added Basham, who's 6'7" as well.
Yep.
So, oh, and then also there's one more. Hold on, what was her name?
Talia
Oh,
Parker.
Sheffy. Sheffy
Oh,
from San Diego State, who I watched in person play LSU, who was San Diego State's leading scorer last year. And I'm not going to say
okay.
she's great, but she is very
Yeah.
much a rotation piece that can actually give them a scoring punch off the bench consistently.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. This is
um,
the best portal haul of anybody
yeah,
in the state.
yeah. Marta Suarez from Cal averaged 13 points, 7 rebounds, 2.4 assists last year
And
on
by
a
the way,
team
I'm
that
counting Maddie Share because she didn't play last year.
yeah. On a team that went 25-9 last year. So they add Marta Suarez, they add 2 6 7 players, they add the leading scorer for San Diego State. Um, and they're getting, like you said, Maddie Shear back and Olivia Miles.
That's insane. That's yeah.
I mean, how high do we start putting this team? In like
Mark
we already know
Campbell
they're the
saw a
Big
little
12
taste of
favorites.
success, and he's like, never anything less than this again.
I mean, seriously, how high do we like are they a top 5 team going into next year?
I think they
South
gotta
Carolina,
be right.
UConn, LSU, they're better than Tennessee.
I mean,
They're better than Ole Miss.
UCLA brings back Betts. I think
Oh,
UCLA has to be up
UCLA.
there
Yeah,
too.
UCLA will be
Yeah.
up there. That's 4.
Um.
USC, but Juju's gonna be out most of the year. And I don't know
Yeah.
if that's fair or not to hold. It is
I
fair
mean,
to hold against them, but
that's I mean, they're losing, so they lose Kiki too,
they
Kiki
also lost
Arifin, so,
Kiki,
like,
so it's just
that's a
gonna be
thing.
they're better than USC
Yeah, right now, yes,
right
yes.
now.
Um, UCLA brings back Betts
Yeah, give
and
UCLA.
Jaquez,
We can give UCLA the.
but they lose Barker. They lost Barker, though.
They did lose Barker. I really don't. I didn't love that UCLA team as much
I didn't
as
either,
hyper
but
that they were. They might be better than, but that's the conversation we're having. Is like UCLA, like out.
they're better
If
than
we
Oklahoma right
say
now?
better than who? Oklahoma.
Oklahoma,
Yeah,
because they bring back Beers
yeah. Beers, Chavez, and
and Williams.
yeah, I'm taking them. I'm taking Olivia Miles will toast Aaliyah Chavez.
Yeah, that's
That is not a matchup.
yeah,
That is
no, right as of right now, you're right, yeah.
as and then, dude, if they're throwing out 6-7 for 40 minutes, I mean, and this girl's not bad. Like Basham just
Yeah,
averaged 2.5 blocks a game in the Big 12. I mean, we're talking about legitimate players here. Silva in the SEC was a player. She wasn't great, but she was a player. Like
yeah,
we're not getting Sedona Prince, but like we saw in I think in the postseason, it's like I don't think they need Sedona Prince
no,
level to be a screen roller finisher, like rebounder defender. And
right.
honestly, Prince as a defender, I don't think was great. She kind of got some blocks, but it was like a lot of blocking numbers. It wasn't
It
really
was a
like
lot of her being tall.
yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll see if Basham and Silva can replicate that or at least be good
yeah.
defensively. But I mean, it's a top 5 team in the country right now.
I think so. I think so. It's insane because we looked at this team and we're like, wonder what they do. They're losing their best player and then they're losing their defensive anchor and then they just get probably depth wise just so much better.
Dude, yeah, they will be able to play more than 5 players
Yeah.
this year. That's like I said, if you bring Sheffy off the bench, I watched her film because I was preparing for when LSU played them round 1,
Mhm.
and then I watched her play, and it's like, she can score. She
Yeah.
put up, I think it was like 12 a game at San Diego State, and she'll be able to come in off the bench and help them. So yeah, this is they are the clear winner here. TCU is. Now, the last question I have for this podcast is who had a better transfer portal haul, Baylor or Texas women? Baylor had just real
Mm.
quickly Talia Scott, who we talked about, Kiara Pemberton, who averaged 17 a game at North Dakota last year, Kirsten Johnson, who comes from Oklahoma, who's 6'4", kind of a defensive type player. Just reading out her Nikki Collins quote.
Mm.
Yuting Dang from Auburn, who can really shoot the ball at 6'2", averaged 12 points a game at Auburn last year. So that's Baylor's haul. For Texas, they added Ashton Judd, who averaged 12 at Missouri last year, who can shoot the ball. Taya Sidbury from Utah. No, I'm sorry, from Boston. Yeah, from Utah, but played at Boston College, averaged 13 a
Mm.
game last year and 7 boards. And then Bria Cunningham, who's was a really big addition for them at 6'4", to transfer in with 2 years of eligibility remaining there. She averaged 11 and 7 last year at Arizona. So when you compare those two, which way do you lean? And I will say Baylor needed it more than Texas is the
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I'd say I'm gonna say Baylor because Nikki Collins continuing to improve on where we thought her teams fell short.
Yeah,
Um, last year was Aaron Vonleh, and this year they've added just a ton more scoring. Obviously the headline of that would be Talia Scott,
yeah,
but like I think that Texas, like you mentioned, Texas didn't have as many holes, and I still think they filled it pretty well. But I still think that there's something to be said about the style of play and when they need something else. I would have loved to have again, I'm not saying he would have changed his whole offense or whole philosophy, but I would have loved to have seen him get somebody to be a reliable outside threat um
yeah.
in situations where they need it, right? Because as we saw with the freshmen last year, maybe that's the answer, right? Maybe they do like the freshmen and kind of what they give them
Yeah.
beyond the arc. But I would have liked to have seen him go to get one reliable shooter, veteran shooter. Um, but again, are you just hoping that South Carolina losing more players, you become that much better, development wise, and you beat them this year? Maybe. Okay, cool. But I think Baylor answered a lot of questions. I don't know if there'll be again. We're used to seeing Baylor, but I do think that this is the second offseason in a row where I've had questions about Baylor, and they've gone and fixed them in the portal.
Yes. I will say for Baylor, they didn't replace you. They didn't replace Aaronette Von Lay directly, and that
Right.
is a concern. As much as Kirsten Johnson was a player or
Mhm.
played at Oklahoma, she didn't play a ton. Like that is not a replacement. So they added
Yeah.
some like scores and some wings, but they didn't really add a real post.
Mhm.
And I thought after this year, seeing Von Lay's impact, that she was going to start to really emphasize that.
Sure.
Maybe they do, and
They added
maybe
a
they go
lot
find
of wings,
someone,
which is interesting.
but they do have a lot of wings. That is very true. So I'm not really
Yeah.
sure because you lose Jada Walker, you lose Sarah Andrews, and I guess you just want to get bigger on the
Yeah,
wings.
and they
And
added Ella Brow yesterday, I believe literally yesterday from SMU. Um, Decent rotation guard. She's not gonna, light the
yeah,
world on fire, but like you mentioned, Yuting Dang, like, you know, scoring option, freshman, young. Ella Brow was a sophomore last year, young. We'll
yeah,
see. I think that in despite not addressing the Von Lay hole, I mean, again, maybe there's still some time. Maybe they'll go get a post. That hole's gonna be big, but I think without having to rely on somebody like Sarah Andrews for 30, 40, 35 minutes a game,
yeah.
I think by replacing her, they're going to have committee, which I think is going to benefit them more.
Yeah, and then for Texas, like you said, they added a couple bigs. I will say Ashton Judd is the scoring
Yeah,
threat
yeah,
of the 3. Like,
yeah,
she's the one they're gonna need to legitimately, like, come in and help Madison Booker,
yes,
on the wing because she is like a 6'1" wing type that can do a little bit of everything. So I'm not sure she starts, but I would love her to come off the bench and just come in shooting. Just come
yeah,
in and look to fill it up. So they're gonna have Rory back. They're gonna have. I mean, that's the question. Is like we didn't even mention Texas in the top 5 conversation, but like that's
Is Holly done?
yeah.
Okay,
I
so Judd,
think
I mean, Judd might start.
she's big.
Yeah, I mean, like
Um,
he likes lengthy wings to be that off
yeah.
guard, so like she might start.
Rory, Book, something like Judd, and then Bria Cunningham will probably because they lose both Jones and Oldacre,
Yeah,
I believe. Well, Jones definitely. Oldacre, I think
right.
is gone.
I mean, unless he
Um,
likes Jordan Lee
Aaliyah Moore,
already.
Aaliyah Moore will be back,
Yes, Aaliyah Moore's
right?
back.
So that Aaliyah Moore will probably start, and then maybe Cunningham or
Jakalenga as well, one in Tonda.
when she transferred, didn't she? She
Did she?
transferred.
Oh,
Yeah,
she
she
transferred? Okay,
transferred.
she might have
I saw
transferred.
that.
Okay.
She
I mean, I would
transferred.
love to see more Jordan Lee next year. Jordan Lee was
Yeah,
really
me
good
too.
in that one
Uh,
tournament game, so
Preston too,
yeah, yeah, Preston's another
um,
one.
and so on. So
Brianna
yeah,
Preston.
it's an interesting conversation, but like Texas is definitely also in that top 5, 6 conversation
Yep.
with TCU and with the UCLA, South Carolina, so on and so forth. So I like it. All right. That's all we got for y'all today. Hope y'all enjoyed the episode. Let us know what you think down below. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. Thank you to Ballology for sponsoring this episode. We'll be back later on. We'll start getting guests on. I wanted to let the dust settle first on some of these teams, but it is kind of dragging out a bit. So we'll probably just
Yeah.
start getting some writers on, some of our friends on to come talk basketball in the coming weeks before we really get to the summer months. So, yeah, that's all we got for y'all today. Hope y'all enjoyed it, and we will talk to y'all later.